Blkunk Japan.
Welcome to another edition of Blkunk Japan, the show where I normally introduce creatives inside or outside of Japan, but today is a Blkunk Japan update. I guess I like to call these ones because I'm going to start making more of these individual solo videos. I wanted to bring the girlfriend in, but she's, she has work and stuff and things. Whoa, that light is really abrasive. That light coming out of that tree. Oh well, we're just gonna have to deal with it. I look like I'm all heavenly in this light right now. Anyway, so today I wanted to talk about making movies in Japan. Making movies in Japan and what that experience is like and how I've been, dealing with it recently. Anybody who's been following this show will know that I've had 3 guests on before this. In particularly, Abroad in Japan was on the show. And I kind of wanted to talk about that since he's been a person on the show for what was it now? It's the beginning of this month of February. Or no, it's not even February anymore. It's March. And I also had Blkunk also on the show. And they kind of challenged me in a way. Like something I wanted to talk about. Having Abroad in Japan on the show was a great experience. I mean, it was just kind of, it was a great experience, but at the same time, it was kind of a depressing experience because it's kind of one of those experiences where what if Tom, from Tom and Jerry, what if Tom actually caught Jerry? What would his life be like after that? He probably would have nothing to do because his whole life revolved around catching Jerry. So kind of the same thing. My podcast was kind of aimed at getting one of the biggest creators in Japan, and boom, I just got it. And I mean, luckily the interview went really well, and there was no real big hiccups. I prepared in advance, unlike this podcast, which, I'm 6 minutes late? Yeah, so I had Abroad in Japan on this show. And we had a great conversation. I tried to humanize him the best I could on the show, and we got to understand what it's like to make an Abroad in Japan video and what that process looks like. I think one thing he said in particular kind of really stuck with me was I asked him, what is your main motivation for making videos? And he was telling me that, I have this big, great worry that I'm going to be 80 years old or 90 years old, and I'll look back and oh shit, what have I done? I haven't done anything. And he was saying the greatest motivator for making a lot of the great content that he's made on YouTube comes from him just not wanting to regret all the things he could have done in his life, because probably anyone who's an atheist, we kind of follow under this philosophy of life is meaningless, but the only way to really make meaning in our lives is to, do something, to have some sort of thing that gives us quote unquote meaning. And then also the week after, which is kind of a nice, I think it was a good balancing act of guests. I don't know if a balancing act's the right word. But the next week, then I had Blkunk on, and then he was, you should watch that interview if you haven't already, because we had a very long conversation about how the platform of YouTube has changed quite a bit, and how it started to become more about chasing views and not actually about making content, or making content, that was for us, because the problem with making content for other people is a lot of the time you kind of lose yourself and you kind of become this tool in a bigger system. So I thought about that, and so I came to Japan back in 2009. That's my origin story about coming to Japan. And my desire, how old was I? I was 21 years old. And anyone that's a 20-year-old, they're totally full of them fucking selves. And that was me. And I had this idea to make all these other movies. And, well, let me go further back than that. I think it all really started when, because my dad was a big fan of movies. He loved watching movies. And he introduced me to Army of Darkness, was the first film that made me realize that, how do I put this? I didn't have the words to put this together back in the day about why I liked a movie like Army of Darkness, which is basically has a very B-movie-like feel to it, but I've seen a few video essays about explaining why the appeal of Army of Darkness, Evil Dead, these movies starring a B-movie actor named Bruce Campbell. If anybody who's heard of him in the chat, give us a thumbs up. These movies, there's this creator named, what's her name? She makes video essays. What's so great about that? I think her name is Grace Lee. Makes fantastic video essays. I don't know how she, manages to find the time to make things like that I don't think she makes them every week, but every 2 weeks or so. Well, maybe it makes sense how she puts it together. But anyway, that's not what matters here. What matters here is that she said that movies like Army of Darkness and Evil Dead, what's great about them is that it is kind of the art of failure. You're watching like one of these. A B movie is obviously not an A movie. It's not a shiny A movie. It's not, I guess you would call it The Godfather as a shiny A movie. These movies that kind of fail in a lot of regards. They fail in terms of creature effects. They fail in terms of acting. And that's what kind of makes them fun, is that watching a lot of the failure. And a lot of, horror films in particular, they kind of fall apart towards, in some degrees, like they have shitty special effects or shitty acting, but sometimes watching these horror films can kind of be fun because, they have these concepts that are appealing to a lot of us. And with that regard, that's what really kind of brought me on this road, because I remember I don't have a copy of the book here. I do have a picture of me and Bruce Campbell. I'm trying to... It's somewhere over there. I don't remember where it is, but there's a picture of me and Bruce Campbell when I was 15 years old, and I went to his book signing, If Chins Could Kill. And I think after that moment, my whole life kind of changed. That's when I first became inspired to make films, and I wanted to, make movies, because it sounded fun. It sounded entertaining. I mean, I didn't think of it as, like, this is my job. I want to be the director. Because, anyone who tells you, people who strive to become directors, it's like me saying, I want to be the lead guitarist. Or I want to be the lead in a play. What is that noise? Did you hear that? What was that? Not sure what that was. Anyway, so that's what one my desire was, and I made my first short film with a couple of my friends. It was about being homeless. The movie was called Bum, which was never finished because the footage was destroyed due to a weather accident, because the tapes left out in the rain, and they were completely destroyed. But I didn't give up, and eventually I later met one of my friends who swears, or he's a completely different person now. My friend Matt Madej, I wish he would take his pills, and I wish that was a joke, but it's not. He's not taking his medicine anymore. But anyway, we made this movie called The Republican, which I eventually will edit, and, well, I'll get to this in a minute. Robin, old dude, I'm hungry. The stomach has been louder than usual. Is that what that noise is? I don't think I can hear your room, Robert, old dude. So I made that film, but the thing about The Republican was, when I made that one, I loved the idea. I was in love with the concept, pretty much. And I loved the concept so much that I decided, I'm just going to get started. I'm going to start making the movie, and I'm not going to, I'm just going to pursue my dreams with wild abandon. right? Abandoned? Maybe I'm slurring my words. It's time to drink some coffee. Alec J, you don't have to address this immediately, but I hope you can go into your previous works for Blkunk and Daikon and can redo the soundtrack. Yeah, fun fact. Alec John in the chat actually did do the soundtrack. I still think that soundtrack's great, but we'll get to that. Hold on. Time to drink some coffee before it becomes a real shit show. All right. So, sip number 1 taken care of. Yeah, so eventually I made that film, and I think the biggest problem I went into making it, why you haven't seen any movies from me in since 2010, 2009, why I decided to not make stuff anymore, was because I kind of went into them loving the idea, the concept, and not focusing enough on the script. So there's I have a shit ton of screenwriting books for that reason, because one of the things, if I showed you the Republican the Republican or Daikonashi right now, and you're like, oh, okay, well, you need to fix a little bit of editing here and there, and then it's done. Yeah, you're right, I do need to do that, but the problem with that though is that it's a lot of work, or it's a lot of I guess you would say editing, trial and error. You need to see what it is that works and what doesn't work. And eventually, when stuff like that happens, you sometimes get frustrated, and a day becomes a week, and then a week becomes a month, and then a month becomes a year, and then a year becomes 10 years. And before you know it, you've made nothing. So I'd say pretty much the whole 2010s was me trying to make the film and trying to revision the way I should make the film, but at the same time I have to realize that I've failed, and that these films should probably just exist on YouTube. And if I eventually put them up, because I'm not going to promote them at this point, because they're basically has-beens of films, I'll just put them up, and if I've made it that far, you know that I'm making it somewhere in life. I'm getting somewhere. Alec J, I just didn't think it was bleak enough. Anyway, go on. Yeah, I will. So that was part of the reason why it kind of fell apart, was because, like I said, I came up with a concept first, and then when I got into editing, nothing really worked. There was no beginning, there was no ending. I guess maybe that's how some art film directors go, because the thing about art, I mean, I'm not trying to sound like a savant here when it comes to art, but it's kind of subjective. But the problem is if you want to make a good movie that appeals to a lot of people, you have to make something that, or at least what I've read in Robert McKee's stories, is that you have to make something that's more of an arc plot. That's kind of like a Greek myth of stories. Has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And it follows some sort of character that has needs and wants. And, I don't really like getting into the anatomy of a story. It is very interesting to learn about an anatomy of a story. But this way, kind of gave me some framework on how to, quote unquote, make my own films. So with that in mind, or at least if I were someone who clicked on this video, they probably want, that's great and all, and you're talking about how terrible your experiences making movies is, but I want to hear about how to make movies in Japan. All right, so let me cut into that. I guess I'm gonna segue into this segment. The thing is with making movies in Japan is, well, I guess I probably should start with my story. My first real introduction to it was, I was a student at Temple University, and they had a communications program, and this program allowed you to make your own films. And that's where eventually I made Daikonashi, and that later led to bigger and greater things, because that introduced me to a lot of people who work in the movie industry. And I guess the best thing you can really do when it comes to making movies and wanting to make more movies or ones with bigger budgets, you have to work on other people's movies, or you have to have people work on your movie and they introduce you to other people who work on other movies. So my timeline goes as this. I make Daikonashi, and then I guess, sometime in between there, in 2010, I suppose, I saw a couple of my friends via Facebook making their own films, and there was a guy named Norman England who I saw pop up on my news feed every now and then. And I'm like, who's this Norman England guy? So Norman England is he's still a friend of mine. We're still friends. I know a few people who don't really get along well with him. You shall not be named, but if you really want to get into it, I guess we could, but I'm not going to go there today. So Norman England was someone I met at a happenstance at Nakano Broadway at a vintage poster store, and there was just something about him that was like, he's definitely a character. He's not, he has a very heavy New York accent. Well, I guess maybe you wouldn't say heavy, but he has a New York accent. And he has a lot of these mannerisms and these ways of speaking that, you could find him in, like, he's kind of like if Where's Waldo wasn't difficult, the opposite of Where's Waldo. He's, pretty easy to find out in like a crowd of people because of the way he speaks Japanese. Like I said, his mannerisms, and because of stuff like that, I have to get to know this guy. And so I introduced myself, and then we became Facebook friends. And later, what happened after that was I guess when you become Facebook friends with randos, it just becomes one of these things where they just kind of lurk in your Facebook feed for a while, and you don't really talk to them. I don't know if anybody can relate to this. And so, I guess I should probably talk about Daikonashi, and then, which kind of led to my depression around the film, because around this time I was kind of confused with where I wanted to be in life, because I was living back in, I'm not sure if anybody really goes through this. Maybe some people do. Maybe this will be a therapeutic moment for you. But I kind of had this problem where I kind of had I want to say, for lack of a word or words, I had location identity disorder. Like, I didn't really understand where I was, because, Japan's not really a very welcoming country towards foreigners. I mean, like, as a guest, yes, you definitely feel like you're kind of like in this, like, I guess, for lack of a better explanation, a Hotel California of a place where you feel like you're a guest and you're there, but you've always been there, but you're not there. And then when you meet people here, it's like you're only staying here. Like, it's like purgatory, or a really fun purgatory. Because, you can't really, I guess you can become Japanese, you can naturalize, but it definitely, you kind of feel this division between us versus them. And I just didn't think, it was kind of a weird situation of being, comparing the two different cultures. And I think I kind of missed America a lot and my friends and things. But, the more I think about it, most of my friends were moving out in the U.S. when I was growing up in high school. Most of them were moving to other places. They're going to different colleges. And a lot of the time, it was just me being alone, going to Denny's or something, doing homework, or writing some script of something that would never get made. But yeah, I digress. I guess I'm not really digressing. This is kind of part of the story. And so I was kind of going through that, and I was kind of going through some depression, and I was back in Japan. And, I think one of the reasons why I've stayed in Japan this long, opposed to just going back, was, as I just said, my life in Colorado was very boring. My community of friends were all broken up. Every Christmas or so, they would get back together to meet up, and we would go to a coffee shop and shoot the shit and swap war stories, all that great stuff. And so, because of all that, well, I need another swig of coffee. Still not awake. Yeah, so because of all that, I eventually came back to Japan, and I have this huge community of, like, people I know here on YouTube, people I know who in the film community. Well, I guess not really so much in 2009, 2010. I didn't really know too many people in the community. I guess I did. I didn't, but it was going to grow exponentially after that point. Not exponentially. Anyway, doesn't matter. So yeah, eventually I went back to Japan, and my communications degree, they have a film festival class hosted by a friend of the show, also a person who was a guest on the show, Carl Newbert. And, I, of course, wanted to submit Daikonashi to the film festival, and I'd submitted The Republican, which weren't kind of finished. They were kind of incomplete in their way. And I think probably because because a film festival, it's about judging what art is good for all other human eyes. And, because of this, both of those movies didn't make it into the film festival because they were too abstract, I suppose. And everybody said the same thing about both of them. They're not finished. And yeah, they're really just not finished. I mean, like, there's certain parts where there's problems with the editing, mostly just the editing. And maybe if you were following this channel since the early days, maybe you got tired of hearing me bitch about editing and like how I couldn't figure out the editing because the scripting behind it just didn't make any sense because there was no script. I just started off as the concept and I went in that way. And so because of that, they didn't get into the film festival. I guess I could have really pushed Carl to get the movie into the film festival because the person I was working with at the time, they really pushed me to wanting to get it in, I guess, but I didn't want to do that for some reason. I didn't want to make it seem like me as a creator is more important than other people. I suppose some of the biggest creators in the world are some of the greatest money-making people of the world. They would do something like that. Like, what did they say about Martha Stewart? That she walked on people's faces to get where she was. I just didn't want to be like that. I didn't want to be a person who made myself seem greater than they really were, and use my clout or my, I guess not celebrity, because I didn't have celebrity at that point. That's what she said. Thank you, Robert, old dude. I just didn't. I didn't want to do something like that. And I guess this is a real determination of my character. In retrospect, thinking about it now, should I have pushed Carl Newbert to put both of these movies or one of the movies into the film festival? I don't know. I'm not really sure because I'm not sure if it would make much of a difference. Because I'm not sure maybe you've seen some people who've made films where they've made a film and then that's it. And it was made and nothing else became of it. Or maybe you have these greater expectations for making a movie and you expect it to take off. But I think it's just kind of like making YouTube videos. You never know what's going to be popular. You don't know what's going to be big or what people want to see. It's hard judging the zeitgeist for what it is. It's the same thing with like memes. You can't really invest in memes because it's hard to like predict what meme will do well. So it's like kind of a making movies or making YouTube videos or podcasts or whatever. You're never going to know what it is people want to see or what they want to see from you. So, yeah, anyway, you should just make a soundboard of all the things I like to say over and over again anyway. So I guess it's like the coffee time. I need coffee. Yeah, moving on. Like I think I mentioned that in my news feed. I met my friend Norman England, and our friendship kind of grew as, you know, I kept seeing his posts on Facebook and I kept commenting on them, and eventually he learned about Daikonashi and he learned about how much of a disaster it kind of was and how it kind of depressed me that neither the Republican or Daikonashi made it into the film festival. It was a little of depressing time for me. I didn't really know how to handle it or how I should feel about it. So Norman was really nice enough to actually take the film and show me what it is and how to, you know, edit something better. I think what they say, a friend is a person who, you know, who will show you how to do something. And I guess that's how part of our friendship grew, is he helped edit Daikonashi into something that resembles a story. Part of the reason why I haven't, quote unquote, released it in full on YouTube is because there's like one tiny sound issue, and I need to, like, it's one of these things where it's like, how do I explain this? You need to, like, go through all the footage just to find this one freaking sound problem, and then after you fix that, then you got to fix it. And then there's like another way you have to go to fix the other sound problem. It's like, it's really just it's a pain in the ass, you know. It's like, imagine you have to go from one station on a train to another station, and it's just like, fuck, I don't want to do this. Hey, Andy-san, thanks for joining the chat. So that was the biggest reason why it hasn't been put in full up on YouTube. And I know it's just like kind of a real something, like if I just got off my ass and I do it, it would be finished. But actually, no, it's more than that too. It's just that sometimes, like when you're working with editing on computer stuff, sometimes the files get corrupted, and then you got to find the right file. And then after you find the right file, Alec J, do you think you'll do another film-esque sort of Radrey video? I could. I mean, who knows what'll happen here. I'm kind of talking about this because it's just something that's been on my mind for a while. Yeah, so anyway, continuing with the timeline. So my friendship with Norman England grew a bit, and trying to remember what happened next. I think there was a person on Inside Japan podcast, James. He interviewed a person named Paprika Girl. I'm pretty sure she goes by the name Haruka. I'm not sure. Now, Norman introduced me to Paprika Girl, and what she did was she made a short film that never got finished. I don't know exactly what happened. I think don't hold me to this. I hope I'm not gonna get hot water for this one, but I think she accidentally deleted all the footage or something. I don't know what happened exactly, but it was a short film where I don't remember. There was like a really big actor. He wasn't a really big actor, but he spoke English fluently, which is pretty rare. Or I mean, I guess there are a lot of big Japanese actors who speak English, but it's not exactly like Watanabe Ken level of English, if that makes any sense. It was a guy named Shogun. I don't remember his last name. I could probably find him on Facebook, but it was him and this other woman who I don't remember, and this guy who created... Oh, I should probably state this. Norman England was a big Godzilla person, because he shot the photography stills on GMK. That's like, shit, what does that stand for again? Godzilla Monsters King, or I can't remember. King Ghidorah, maybe. I'm not really much of a Godzilla fan, as some people really are. But yeah, he was like one of the first. If you go to his Wikipedia page, it says something like one of the few foreigners to wear the Godzilla suit, and he's had a lot of involvement on like a lot of Godzilla productions. He has cameos in some Godzilla films, and so he knows a lot of people in the filmmaking world, particularly people who work on Godzilla films. And he was able to like make this creature suit for one of the actors in this woman who I mentioned earlier, Paprika Girl, whose footage I think has been deleted. I don't know. Don't hold me to this. I don't know what's happened to the footage or what happened to the movie. So anyway, yeah. So I made that short Godzilla feature with Paprika Girl, and I want to say that's her name. I don't know what handle she's going by. She made a like a web series with Tikio Sam called Coffee Yado, I think. I'm not 100% that that's her. I hope I'm not confusing her with someone else, but I'm pretty sure that's her. Because she's a white lady with like a Japanese name, and so it kind of confuses Japanese people, which is, I think, intentional. I'm not sure. I think, well, 'cause if you listen to her interview, and I'm sorry to plug other people's things, but her interview on ALT Insider James, she talks about how difficult it is working in movie sets, and that's a pretty good interview as well. But anyway, it's not. This podcast isn't about that. So from that, I got to know Norman a little better, and I can't remember. Oh, and then there were certain times like he would ask me to help him with DVD extra stuff. Actually, I have one of the DVDs over there. I worked on a British DVD for Cold Fish, a Sumatai Netago. It's a Shion Sono movie, and it was based on a true event. And the person who was involved in the true event was, you probably have heard of him, the journalist Jake Edelstein. Jake Edelstein was one of the people who broke the story about because then it wasn't about fish, it was about dogs. And he broke the story, and then they eventually made a movie out of it. And so I can't remember the name of the company. It's Third Window Films. Andrew, I haven't followed him on Facebook in ages, but Andrew was part of that, and he wanted to have some sort of extra DVD features, about making the film. And so Norman knew that I was at school and I had access to some of the equipment, and I used my student pass to like use the equipment to make some of these DVD extras. This is true. And then we interviewed Jake Edelstein. Silly o'clock. It wasn't too silly o'clock. It wasn't too early. It was somewhat early, enough to like be groggy and feel like that weird adrenaline feeling when you wake up too early in the morning. Eric Timmer, why wear blazer? You don't like the blazer? All right. I was trying it out. Like I want to have like a theme for the show. You're not liking it? All right. Well, lesson learned. So, yeah, where was I going with this? Oh, yeah, so we interviewed Jake Edelstein, and then the same day, we went over to one of my friends, Alex Paillet's house, also a big, former guest on the show as well. Alec J, it's dang good aesthetic. Great. Thumbs up for the blazer. Thumbs down if you hate it. There we go. That's a good judge. Went over to my friend Alex Paillet's house, and he was, we were testing out some equipment or something. Not with the t-shirt. Well, I like the theme, It's like, it's serious in the inside. It's serious in the outside, it's silly in the inside. But I guess Eric Timmer does not like it. You're wrong, Eric. That's what Alec J says. That's okay. I don't know. If I have one more person say it doesn't look good, then I will change the aesthetic. Joss Bean, I have Cold Fish Blu-ray from Third Window Films. Thank you. That's the name of it. I'll have to rewatch it now. I haven't seen it released since now. Needs a tie to complete it. Eric Timmer, down. I think he down thumbed it. Man, Eric Timmer's quite a feisty one. Okay, I guess I'll buy that for 1 yen. Down with the tie. All right. Man. Okay. I guess the hive mind has spoken. Yeah, no, Third Window Films, they have a... I haven't followed them too much recently. I should, and see what they're up to. I did some other interview stuff with Third Window Films, and Andrew. We did a couple of more interviews. One for Koi no Tsumi. That's another Shion Sono movie. I kind of helped out Norman with that, just basic production assistant shit. Yeah, so anyway, I met up with Alex Paye, and at this time, Alex, was kind of a shame. He doesn't really make movies anymore. Because he made like 2 other films that were really good, like You Plus Me Equals Love, and the other one was Karma. And I can say this, that he had a lot of help on those movies. I mean, because he knew a lot of people, because he kind of lucked out, because he knew Shion Sono, because he taught him English at GABA a long time ago. And what is this? There's a question held for review. Hold on. All right. I want to stick to the main thrust of the show, Eric. All right. I don't think you're even subscribed. You need to subscribe to this channel. I'm starting to sound like Bad Bunny here. The person is $5. That's shit. I guess I can understand why she gets upset. But anyway, sorry, Eric. I got to give you. Is BLK still? UNK still here? He might be still here. I'm not sure if he's here. Maybe he might add some interesting things to the chat. But anyway, let's continue. So I knew to Alex, and he made a couple of great films. And yeah, and he knew Shion Sono because he taught him English, and he helped him make some of his first movies. He made some of his first movies. Yeah, like I said, Karma and You Plus Me Equals Love. And when he made these, he wanted to move on and make a couple of shorts, because he eventually premiered these movies at U-Body Film Festival up in Hokkaido, and he was like really enthusiastic about making movies, because if you make a short film, a good chance is to send it to U-Body, and even if it's cold, because if you ask Norman England about this, when he was in U-Body, it's cold as hell. The hotels are really cold. You're treated horribly because you're a foreigner, but the silver lining behind making movies and sending them to the U-Body International Film Festival, I say international quote unquote because it's mostly we like Japanese filmmakers, and we're not really much of a fan of foreign films. Maybe we'll let a foreign film, Tom Cruise in it, that was made with a budget of $1 million. We'll let that in, but that's it. I mean, or at least that's the attitude I got from Norman and I think Alex at that time. But anyway, he told me you have to have a film premiere at U-Body. You'll meet so many great people. You'll meet actors. You'll meet effects artists. You'll meet costume people. And they all go. Of course, I haven't made anything since Daikonashi or the Republican, so I haven't made anything for U-Body, and I'm not sure what U-Body looks like nowadays. All they know for is melons and cold weather. Oh, thank you, Eric. Thanks for subscribing. That kind of helps. It really helps with the aggregate. It really does. Yeah, if anybody's not subscribed already, just pushing buttons really does help. I guess there's also stuff on my part that I need to do. I need to make content every week. Otherwise, YouTube forgets about me or algorithms me out. Yeah, so he was telling me he was making this new short films on YouTube. I think they're all gone. I don't know if Alex still has them. It was Mari-chan Gambare, and I don't think he's really proud of these films, or short web zone episodes, I guess you would call them, because they're kind of they're really kind of amateur. But I mean, the thing is, or at least what is it, George Lucas? I mean, George Lucas made a couple of bad movies, If nobody knows what I'm talking about, I'll just say it. He made Star Wars Episode 1, 2, and 3. They weren't the greatest movies. They weren't good. Yeah. The biggest problem with like Star Wars is that there was too much kid shit with the Jar Jar Binks stuff, and it seemed like George Lucas was kind of confused with what it is he wanted to put in Star Wars, or what Star Wars was, because it became this big thing. I know I'm comparing George Lucas to Alex Paye, but I mean, I think he has something to learn here, because I mean, he hasn't made anything since then, and he was kind of embarrassed by it. I think I could be wrong. I could probably get him on the podcast again and ask him about it, but yeah, that was kind of the demise of his filmmaking career, because he just he got depressed about how the reaction based upon it. And I mean, I'm in a few of those WebZone episodes. And it's not it's not great, but it's kind of a cute little WebZone. Yeah, and so from that, I met some other people. One of the people who was, I would say, assistant director. Well, in Japan, the way movie productions work is you're just called an assistant to a director. And the title's kind of vague, but then there's also like main AD. If anybody knows, like, was it behind the scenes of making films, that there's like many different roles. But I guess you would just basically, so the role that they call in American, movie productions, like assistant director, which is basically like the role of mom. Mom is usually always aggressive. She's the one who gets the shots taken. She gets the people motivated, everyone ready, wakes everyone up, gets everyone ready. And, it takes a certain type of attitude and a certain finesse to be an assistant director. And the person Alex had who really helped keep the whole production together, which was, I think, one of the great parts of Mari-chan Gambare, because there's a lot of people in those web zones, like a lot of people. And it was all shot in like DSLR, like shaky cam kind of stuff. I wish I could find some of it to watch some of it again. Yeah, so anyway, he was it Mari-chan was, oh, yeah, so one of the ladies who was the assistant director was a woman named Lisa, can't even say it, Lisa Takeba, who ended up, she still makes movies today, even though she completely gets stressed out by making movies as well. I was in 2 of her films, which was also a lot of stress for me as well. I mean, it's particularly... Well, the first film she did was in 2014, so if you look on IMDb, I'm credited in this film. It's the Pinky. The movie's known as The Pinky. I play a construction worker, and so I met her through that. And then I was also in the other film of hers in 2015, I want to say, or 16 maybe. I think it was 2015. I could be wrong. It was Haruko's Paranormal Laboratory. And then she made some other film, which is kind of like Battle Royale, but in a school. I can't remember the name of it. Yeah, so it was really good to meet her. I don't know. I haven't talked to her in ages. She used to really like me, like a long time ago, because I used to like sub her movies terribly. I wasn't a very good subtitler. But I did try it. I did try a crack at it. I mean, a professional is like somebody like Norman England. He doesn't even, if you listen to my interview with him on this podcast, he doesn't even really teach English anymore, because, or at least how he describes it as, teaching English is like the equivalent of washing the dishes, or being a dishwasher in Japan. Alec J. All right, so you're a Lynch Kubrick fan. What's your plan in the future? What's your plans for the next piece? Well, I'm getting to that. And this is like, there's a story here. This is story time with Radrey. I should just call it that. Yeah, I mean, I also made another film. I have some stuff on my desk. I should probably show it. I mean, I kind of put this out as consequential order. I mean, this is a New Neighbor. This is Norman England's movie. And he hasn't really made any movies since, because just the stress of having to make movies. It's the DVD that I got. It's a great film. It's really good. As some people say, what is it? I guess I could say his name. I don't give a shit. Probably get heat for this. But what's his name? Dan, who was in Daikonashi, German Dan. He's even listening to this. He says he likes this movie because it looks like a movie. I mean, I don't know. He made another film called The Idol, which I think looks like a movie too. I don't know what he's talking about, which I think he's also in. German Dan. He lives in Beijing now. Yeah, so I was a production assistant in this film. I'm not even credited on IMDb. I guess I could put my credit on IMDb. But, yeah, Norman was a bit of a nervous wreck the entire time making this movie because he had a lot of stress making it because he had to be in a location for a certain time, and the location cost money. And all this money is not from a producer. It's from out of his pocket. And he had to work with the director of photography, and he had to work with the sound people, and he also had to work with the lighting people, and particularly sometimes they had trouble communicating what it is they wanted to have shot and not have shot, and it kind of led to a lot of frustrations while making the film. And I think Norman needed a lot of stress relief, and I was kind of his punching bag for that. And, you know, I forgive him because, I mean, I think I understand what the stress was behind making this film. It was definitely high stress. And, you know, I was talking to some of the staff that, you know, sometimes they had a really hard time understanding his Japanese. And, you know, I think if I'm going to be making films at a professional level like Norman does, I'm going to be dealing with the exact same thing. But no, at the same time, I don't hate him for making me be his punching bag because, yeah, like I said, everybody needs to de-stress every now and then. And this was in 2012. I stopped really kind of getting film jobs when I started to take my, because I needed to keep this, I needed to be more financially viable with, keeping this apartment, paying bills and everything. So I kind of had to like dive into an English job that was steady because, you can't always just, the problem with film jobs is that they're very sparse. They're so, like, maybe you find one, you're like, all right, great, let's start it, let's do it. And then the money behind it is not always guaranteed. So, like, I guess this is a podcast for another day, but, or another episode, is if you work in acting in Japan, or if you want to join a talent agency, which you can do, sometimes they don't pay you until 2 months after the episode or the commercial or TV spot or whatever it is you did airs. So you have to just really play the waiting game until the money comes in, so you can pay for rent and pay for bills and food and whatever. So it's a very hard life. It's a very tough balancing act, trying to make these movies. Or just trying to, if you only wanted to make movies, then that's part of what you have to deal with, because nobody starts off as, people often joke about how, like, oh, he's the next Spielberg, which doesn't really happen anymore, I don't think. It seems like movie theaters are kind of at this dying age where everybody just goes sees the Avengers and nobody goes to see any other kind of movies. Like, when was the last drama film you saw in theaters? Does anybody go see dramas anymore? I want to Derek Timmer. I want to join Donnie's for old dudes. Yeah. No, it's surprisingly very easy to do talent agency, but like I said, that's a conversation for another day. And so that's kind of how you get paid. And yeah, from the last, like, what is it, I guess 2015, I wanted to make YouTube videos again because I kind of lost I think what Blkunk said in my interview earlier is that what is it? He was talking about how we all changed, how we all started chasing views, that a lot of us stopped making content because YouTube was really pushing us to, like, chase views. I mean, they still do. What is it? You can't even get your own username unless you have 200 subscribers. You're, like, rewarded these things with getting new followers, basically building your own communities. Eric Timmer, nope, the last movie was Star Wars. Netflix, Prime, YouTube is all I watch, and Picard. I've heard Picard is terrible. I don't know if, or at least my friends who are, like, real Trekkies, they really hate it. Or at least Red Letter Media really hates it too. But yeah, no, I mean, it seems like most of the time, most people just watch Netflix, Prime, YouTube, and nobody goes to the movie theaters unless it's something special. Like, I'm gonna go see Sonic when it comes to Japan. I'm gonna be first in line, even though it's probably gonna be the shittiest movie ever made of Sonic. I'm still gonna love it. I mean, I like the Super Mario Brothers movie. Everybody hates that movie because it looks nothing like Super Mario Brothers. But again, like, going back to Army of Darkness and Evil Dead, I like these movies that fail and that don't do well. And because I think I've said this 100 times, but it's because you learn so much and from watching other people fail. Yeah. So yeah, Blkunk was right. It kind of all changed when we all started chasing views. Like, you had people like creators like Claytonian. I was thinking about him the other day. I don't even know what he's doing nowadays. Who don't make content anymore. You have a lot of people who don't, or at least from when I was making YouTube content steadily. I think I kind of gave up around 2010, and then I really stopped making stuff in 2011. I tried to make my stuff more polished and make things more professional looking, more abroad in Japan looking. Yeah, it kind of seems like there's less creative freedom in a way. It's more like YouTube is trying to push you to, gain more views, more followers, because that means more eyeballs and advertising where they can, put people, get you to buy more things, blah, 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 all marketing, all bullshit. Well, everything's about money. I mean, I'm not here to, like, sit here and talk about the dooms and glooms of making YouTube and how it was so great back then. It's like anything in life. You just kind of have to pivot. You have to just move on. Because if you don't, you just end up in this, like, spiral of the past. And it's a lot like, the theme of the show, the Twin Peaks. You start asking yourself, what year is it? If anybody was a Twin Peaks fan, thumbs up if you have. I can't stress that thumbs up enough. Yeah, so I mean, basically, I did the fucking stupid thing that everybody does on YouTube, where, like, I'm back, and then you don't make another video for another year or so. Yeah, in 2015, I made I'm Back and stuff, and I was a big fan of, like, Markiplier and a couple of other video game people, because those got really big on YouTube. The more I think about it, the more I was like a missed opportunity. If I stayed consistent back in 2010, 2011, it'd be much easier to grow the channel. But as they say, the universe is smart, but it's going to give you more opportunities to grow and get better. And the problem is you can't really depend on the universe to help you. You need to help yourself in order to improve and get to where it is you need to get. If that makes any sense. I'm a good speaker. And so, what Alec John was talking about in the chat, will I make another film? Yes, the answer is yes, because I was thinking about this a couple of weeks ago. I think I want to make another film because the only way to really grow on this channel, because, I should probably state this. After having Abroad in Japan on this channel has not grown. It did not get many subscribers. It's gotten a lot of people sending me, like, hey, that's really cool, you got him on your show. So it's been a good thing and a bad thing. Like, the numbers haven't gone anywhere. So I feel like, as Blkunk was saying, chasing numbers it's not worth it. It's kind of like, it's like investing in memes. It's not gonna work. I mean, maybe you can be like Michael Bloomberg today and buy Fuck Jerry or something, and if anybody knows who that is, it's an Instagram account, and like pay them, say, hey, make a bunch of memes about me and make me memeified. I guess it worked for Trump, but it's hard to say what memes will do well and what won't do well. I mean, yeah, you'll become part of the what's the word? The zeitgeist, I guess. Like, is that what I need to do? Maybe thinking about this now. Maybe that's what I need. I just need to invest in memes. Maybe that's the currency of what we live in today. But I don't have that kind of money, so that's not going to happen probably. Yeah, so I kind of came to this conclusion that, well, what is the definition of my channel? What is it that I set out to make with this thing originally? And I think the biggest thing is that making short films. And it's going to be this thing where it doesn't matter what kind of movies I make. It's always going to be one of these things where it's like, just like having Abroad in Japan on this show. It's something that happened, and that's it. I feel like at this point, even if I had like one of the biggest guests like PewDiePie or Trump or anybody on this show, my probably numbers still would be kind of shitty. You know, I'm getting this in, hey, Alex does stuff. Hey, he's back. Alex, I just talked about you for like an hour previous. Maybe you can go back into that section. I hope I'm not putting myself in trouble talking about this stuff, but I guess it's in the past. I guess it's all fine. So it's kind of become one of these things where it's like, I like investing my time, and sometimes I have these problems where I have this, like, what do you call, perfection paralysis, where you try to make everything the way perfect to the way that suits you, you know, because it just drives the living shit out of you. Yeah, so I'm going to have to kind of realize that even if I have some of the biggest guests on this show's not going to grow. And the only way I'm going to really make it grow is if I just keep on making stuff and to see what sticks. Because I can't buy memes. I'm not Michael Bloomberg. I can't spend $6 million on it. And I'm just going to have to make more projects. And I'm going to have to fail. And I'm going to have to watch everything to suck. Okay, let me put it this way. If you start seeing Daikonashi and Republican on this channel, you know I'm getting the ball rolling. You'll know things are getting started. Things are moving again. And that, you know, I will eventually move on to other projects. Because I'm thinking about a bunch of short film ideas that'll be easy and cheap to make. Actually, here's something I can kind of relate back to. One of my former guests, Mayday-san, he was talking about how when he makes TikTok videos that do really well, you should go check him out if you haven't. And he is like quite the following on TikTok. And I mean, the thing is that he was saying in my interview, he was saying that sometimes you have these people. I should just imitate him. He's like, you got these people out there and they just go, whoa, and you know, and then they make this video and like, and then it does really, really great. Probably, I can't imitate him. I can't. That was me trying to imitate him. No, what he was saying is that sometimes you have these people who just make this video on their phone and then it fucking goes viral. And you're like, what? Why is this popular? Why do people like this one? And so, yeah, I mean, it kind of goes back to the saying, maybe you're familiar with the saying by William Goldman, nobody knows anything. So it's not really worth, like, your time to, like, maybe you could, like, if you can find a trend that you can milk, go for it, like what Eric Surf 6 is doing, where he just eats food all the time, because he can do the same thing over and over and over and over again and still be in, you know, get great amount of views because everybody has to eat food like Eric Surf 6 does. Or nobody eats the way he does, the way he chews food. I guess I've said before in this podcast that Eric Surf 6 is like hanging out with your dad who has this like really strange mannerisms the way he eats. I mean, I should have him on the show again and do like a mukbang kind of thing. Tai Naka, what kind of movies are you going to make? And also, how long movies? Well, obviously short films. And I think they're going to mostly be sketches, because I think sometimes cheap sketches are really big on YouTube right now, particularly like as I showed you with TikTok and Mayday-san. So it would probably be something like that, but something little bit more artsy, so I can kind of quickly make it and throw it up on YouTube, since that's what everybody watches nowadays. Maybe I could try there is like one bigger film project I want to make that's going to cost a lot of money to produce, but I'm going to put that on the shelf for now and then work on some of these other ones, because I have a bunch of these. Actually, I'm not sure if he's a friend of the show. I'm not even sure he's subscribed, but there's a guy named JR. I can't pronounce his last. Lipardo? Lipardo. I don't know. JR is what everybody calls him. I met him at Temple University. Also knew Norman. Not the biggest fan of Norman anymore. They had a falling out over some film. See, that's the problem with making movies, is sometimes it does end friendships. It does, tarnish relationships, because, you're no longer, when you're working with friends, it starts to become less of, it becomes more of like a business than it does a friendship. And so it kind of tarnishes that, because sometimes you can't always rely on your friends for everything. Anyway, so JR, I brought up JR. Shit, what was I going to talk about with him? I don't remember. I should not digress. I should never have digressed. JR has done a bunch of movie things. I mean, I've did a few projects with him, but that also hasn't really taken off. Yeah, I don't remember what I was going to talk about with JR. But yeah, no, he's also tried to make films here in Japan. He's made a few. I mean, I don't think they're great movies. They're all right. They're kind of cute. But I think one thing I've noticed that what people like about my channel and me is the comedy, and they like being entertained, that they feel energized. So I could definitely do that. And sometimes being an English teacher really helps, because you can kind of throw some of your content out at your students, and you see the way they react. And if you get bad reactions, you're like, okay, well, they didn't find that funny, because children will be very honest with your content and how it is they feel about you as a person. They're not going to be polite like adults are. Alex Does Stuff says, I haven't seen JR's film. JR's films are all right. I mean, he did a couple of like science fiction stuff, but he's mostly focused more on the documentary stuff nowadays. Yeah, I tried to make a I tried to make some sort of like documentary style, where it's kind of like an Anthony Bourdain type documentary, but I had no direction with it, which is why it never got finished. I think Abroad in Japan did it much better. He has a really good set structure. If you go and listen to that interview, or if you have listened to the interview, maybe you remember he says he has a structure where he teaches you something, and then he says something that's funny. It's a nice little set structure of like getting you to finish watching a video. Robert Old Dude, once you realize if you want your channel to grow, it'll make what your viewers want to see. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. So I guess the biggest thing I've learned here is fuck, I hate to sum it up here in a few words like fucking Shia LaBeouf and so just do it, because that's bad advice. It's bad fucking advice. It's like, what does that even goddamn mean? Just do it. I don't know what that means. Yeah, because I've had people, I've made screenplays before, and I've been very careful about how it is I put together a screenplay, because I don't want to be doing one of these Daikonashi or Republican things where I come up with the concept and I just run with it. But sometimes you have to do that at some points, but I think what it is get the script down perfect, or get it down to the point where, because, when you start shooting your film, there's so many freaking variables. So many things won't look the same, and you have to make tons of fucking sacrifices. Yeah, so because of that, I really feel like having a tight script is important. Because even the woman I worked with, Lisa Takiba, I've had people talk shit about. I've heard people talk shit about her, and I'm sure people are gonna talk shit about me. But I think at the same point, I kind of have to realize too, like, it doesn't matter who talks shit about me, because I'm just gonna have to deal with it and pursue it with wild abandon. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Oh, I also have here on this desk, I put this up because I didn't even talk about him at all. Lloyd Kaufman. I was a big Troma fan back when I was, 16 years old? And I remember this was the first book I ever read, and it made me really feel like I could make movies, that it's not so impossible. Even though this book's kind of dated, they still talk about film versus digital, which is an argument that doesn't exist anymore because everybody just uses digital. Yeah, this book was written in 2003. Yeah, now everybody just uses digital. No, there's no, what is it? There's a little bit's outdated, and a lot of it's kind of like pre-Me Too movement stuff, so you'll kind of see a lot of that in there. Alex does stuff. I talk shit about her. She's nice, but, yeah, I know. Well, I don't think Lisa talked. I tried to ask Lisa to be on this podcast. I don't think she was interested. She did the Japanese thing of, like, not saying no, but just not responding. That's a bad sign. So, yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens. Like I said, I'm going to say this 500 goddamn times because I feel like it needs reiteration. I don't know. I hate these people who repeat themselves constantly. Like, if you see Daikonashi or the Republican on this channel uploaded, then I'm getting the ball moving. So with that said, that's my spiel today, or not my shtick, but that's something else. That's a comedy routine. Any questions? Does anybody have any questions about making movies in Japan? Otherwise, I'm gonna see myself out of. Was Alex does stuff? She can fuck herself. Yeah, well, yeah. People talk shit about. I think you have to really be in touch with your reputation, because that's what leads to more things on making movies in Japan. That's really important. But yeah. Anyway. Yeah, that's my spiel for today. I think we're gonna end it there. I want to thank everybody for watching, tuning in, writing your comments, subscribing, liking, writing us a 5-star review on iTunes. Yeah, so I probably forgot to mention, I probably should have mentioned this at the beginning of the podcast, but Chris Madej was supposed to be on this show, but he didn't make it because we had to reschedule because of a time conflict. So he should be on the show at 10 a.m. next week on Monday morning. Wait, hold on, we got a comment. All right, the Carpe DM. How much does it cost to make an indie movie? How much does it cost to make an indie movie? Well, I guess it really depends. I think probably what you're probably working with is like a micro budget movie that there's no money behind it. Especially if you're making a movie in Japan, because nobody really likes art in Japan. There's like this weird, like, they appreciate art, but they don't really care about art. Japanese peoples, or people in Japan, their attitude is sort of like, well, we don't really care. That's nice. You make paintings and you like this kind of shit. But that's nice. I mean, especially like when it comes to like inventing something new, Japan's a difficult place to invent something new. Like the guy who made LED lights, who's Japanese, he says, if you want to make something new and innovative, just leave Japan. Don't make it here. And I mean, I guess that's bad advice for people who want to make movies in Japan, but I mean, hey, look at the way Abroad in Japan made his videos, and he has over 1 million subs, and I'd say he's doing quite well. I mean, he says that he hasn't quote-unquote made it yet, or at least in the interview he said that. But but what is it? That's his full-time job. That's what he does every day. And so he knows what makes a good video or what makes a good podcast or whatever, because he makes stuff all the time. And I've dropped the DVD. All right. So next week on this show will be Christmas Day. Tune in 10 a.m. So until then, I'm Radrey, and I'll see you next time, my dudes.